by career, Ryan and I, who was my former partners, is school teachers by career. It was
Mhm.
an idea that he had kind of pitched to me and said, "Hey, what about making a podcast?" And we kind of had, maybe two different backgrounds. I was a little bit more of a competitive golfer, played college golf, and Ryan was like the everyday guy who just wanted to play golf and play more of it and just talk about it. So I kind of took the idea to a couple people within the state of New Jersey, and I said, if we focused on golfing in the Garden State, like that was our niche, would it have some legs? And it was a resounding yes. Everybody was like, oh my God, we got so many good golf courses, public and private. We got the head golf professionals, directors of instruction, mid-ams, college kids. We got it all here. So a couple days later, I went back to Ryan and said, all right, I'm all in. And when I'm all in, I'm all in. And we, head down. We pumped out we launched October 12th, 2022, and a brand new episode has come out every Tuesday ever since. No families,
Which
no matter what, family sickness, health, personal vacations, whatever happened, every single Tuesday since October 12th, 2022, a brand new episode has come out. And then since January 1 of 2024, there's been a brand new guest on every single Thursday show. And then obviously, with Ryan, kind of departing a little bit, it then just threw everything back on me to say, listen, are we going to keep this going? And I wasn't ready to give it up. I think at times we had some creative differences. And that happens sometimes in partnerships. It wasn't no ill will. It wasn't like I didn't like him or he didn't like me. It just got to the point where, I kind of saw it going one way and it's continued to go. I mean, I've got a guest co-host helping me out, Chris Dimmick, who's the head golf professional at Manasquan River Golf Club. And him and I have been pumping out episodes on Tuesday. I've been handling all the guests solo on Thursday. And it's been this wild, crazy ride.
Yeah, because I mean, I have to say, it's very difficult to do it every single week in and out because it's a lot of work. I mean,
Tell me about it.
yeah, no, I had because I mean, I started doing these I have a mortgage business, and I was like, okay, you know what, let me just get real estate agents, and so, and later on, I was like, I realized that I would do it every winter, but then around April, it was like, okay, you know what, I want to play golf. I got the kids. I'm going out, and it's just difficult to like be all the time. It's like, okay, reaching out to people, getting guests, like thinking of new topics, so I mean, having 3 years in a row, 3+ years in a row, it is amazing.
Yeah, listen, it's one of those things that I think when you're in it and you don't truly think about it. But then when you have those aha moments, when whether it's 2 years or 50 consecutive or 100 consecutive episodes or 3 years, it is one of those things that, listen, it's a lot of work. And I jokingly say, but I'm somewhat serious that, like, similar to what you're mentioning there, is I play Tetris with my life. Like, I am a school teacher by career. I am a husband. I am a dad to two daughters who are in many activities. I coach
Mhm.
high school sports. So it's like, okay, where can I find time in 24 hours to make everything work while making sure the priorities are in line? And listen, at times it's overwhelming. I will be brutally honest. It's a lot, but at the end of the day, it's something that, like, I really, really enjoy doing.
I think if you have that passion, and especially, I mean, I think we're all like golf addicts. We have a sickness. You just kind of keep on going. It's like you get excited about one thing, and then that leads to another. But I think it was an article on the MGA website that you guys came up with the idea while playing Hominy Hill, right?
Yeah, so
How was
that
that?
was
Can you tell me, like,
yeah.
how did that moment go? Like,
So the background with Ryan when we were together was we weren't friends. Like, we didn't hang out. It wasn't one of those best friends we grew up together. It was just we knew each other from coaching high school sports. So this one random time, Ryan had asked, "Do you want to go play golf?" And it so happened that as a school teacher, I had back to school night that night. I live down in Long Beach Island, Hominy Hills in Monmouth County. I teach in Monmouth County. So it was like, all right, yeah, you know what? Instead of driving home, I'll go play golf. And that's when he had pitched me the idea about doing this whole thing. And that's where the idea came about. It's where it began. And that's why we always kind of jokingly at the time had said, like, that was the birthplace of the Drop podcast.
And so now, because I mean, Hominy Hill is kind of right by the parkways. Is that why it's called the drop drive? Then correct me if I'm wrong. Driver the parkway,
And
right?
so it's driver off the parkway.
Off the parkway. Okay.
So when listen, that's probably one of the hardest things that him and I had ever done together is trying to find a name that resembles and references what we're trying to talk about. And when we're trying to pitch ideas about like New Jersey, thinking about golf, everybody knows the Garden State Parkway. Anytime you say, where do you live? I live at exit 63, right? I live at exit 75. Like that's how we all say it. So we're trying to think about different things. It was, all right, let's go with the drop. It references golf. People take drops. If you're not that good, you kind of know what we're talking about. But then the
Yeah,
word drop also, stands for driver off the parkway, with the slogan always being, we're talking golfing in the Garden State.
that's awesome. That's awesome. And right after that, what was the first thing that you guys did to make this happen? Like, was it something that you guys have meetings or just like, okay, you know what, let's go ahead and see? Because I saw, I also read in an article that you were saying that, it was very amateurish, at the beginning, which I'm in that stage. I can confidently say I'm in that stage. But yeah, how did you guys make that first step of, okay, like, let's go ahead and do this? What was the first thing you guys got?
Yeah. So more or less it was like, all right, how are we going to record something? So we decided to put a trailer out. So we made it like maybe like a 60-second teaser. So if you legitimately went to Spotify and you scrolled all the way to the very, very early onset, you'll see that 1 minute trailer. And it's crazy because when you listen to something like that, I think I recorded it on my phone driving to Scotland Run when I was going to play golf. And at the time, we kind of didn't know how we were going to do it. But we knew when we had the first episode, we were just going to use headphones and whatever audio that we had, whether it was the computer, whether it was microphones that we had or standalone headphones, whatever we had, we were just using. And then it just kind of said, okay, let's just be consistent. That's always been the thing that people told me is like consistency matters. Every week, if you're going to have a following, they want something to come out. So we said, no matter what, for as bad as it sounds, for as ugly as it looks, let's just keep pumping them out. So we would just pump out the audio. And at times it was a lot of like, sometimes we'd have a guest on the back end of our show. So we would go maybe like a 90-minute show sometimes if we had a guest. But it just evolved over time where then 6 months into the podcast, advertisers wanted to jump on board. Hey, we love what you're doing. We want to be involved and we think you guys have a lot of potential. And I was like, this is crazy. So we had two different jobs within the podcast. I decided like, all right, I got to go make an LLC. Like I got to make
Yeah.
something because people aren't going to make a check to Mike Puorro. They're going to make a check to the Drop Podcast. So before we know it, we made an LLC and one thing led to another. So anytime that someone, wanted to be involved, we then upgraded the mics. We upgraded the camera. We upgraded the computers, anything to always make the platforms, like whatever we could always find ways to upgrade what him and I were doing. That was always the intent.
So now you guys were initially were just audio first. So it wasn't video, or it wasn't Instagram or YouTube. It was just straight up audio.
So early on, we had all the socials, right? We had all the socials. Obviously, I don't think we had TikTok, but we were very big into Instagram early on. That was our biggest one. And then we would always put out the audio version on YouTube, which is kind of crazy to say. But early on, neither one of us were tech people, or we didn't really understand like the whole podcast game. So if you scroll again to YouTube, our podcasts are strictly audio with kind of like a graphic overlaying him and I talking. And that's kind of, and we would pump it out there. And, listen, I'll be brutally honest. Not a lot of people listen to that. It was more the audio vehicle driving a lot of things. But then it got to the point as we were getting better equipment, we had better information, we were becoming a little more knowledgeable about the game. I said, listen, let's start putting the video on there. So then we grabbed the video and we started putting the video up. And then, things just kind of evolved as you go through the process, you learn more about it and it became what it is, I guess, more or less.
And what was some of the fears that you had in the beginning? And I think this happens to everyone that starts a new venture, doesn't matter whether it's a business or you're out there, whatever it is, you're thinking, oh my God, I'm going to get judged. I don't know enough about this. What was some of those fears being, because you mentioned you used to play college golf. Ryan didn't. But I mean, you guys still love the game. But probably the first thing I'm thinking about, which it happens to me all the time, is like, oh my God, I'm an 8 handicap. How am I going to talk to a scratch, a +2? What were some of those fears?
Yeah, I think at times the hardest part is kind of finding ways to relate to all golfers, right? Like you mentioned, like you're an 8 handicap. Ryan was kind of in the same boat. As a scratch golfer, it's like, well, how can I relate to you guys? Like like I got to find ways and think of different things that we all can find common ground. And at the end of the day, it's golf. Like we all want to get better. At the end of the day, like you're trying to get from 8 to a scratch, and I would love to get from a scratch to a plus. Like there, no doubt, the finding ways to improve is always the biggest part of it. But I think the fear more or less is everything now is on camera if you're videoing golfing, right? Like, so it's very like you're out there and people don't realize how hard it is. And for guys like me, it's like I'm putting every shot out there, the good, the bad, the ugly. I've put shots out there where I've topped it, I sculled it, I shanked it. And I've had people say, "You're really going to put that out there?" I'm like, "Yeah, listen, it's who I am. Like I hit that shot. I'm not staying. I'm a PGA Tour pro. So like I played the 11th hole at Plainfield, one of the most famous par threes that we have here. And I can't lie.
Par 5.
Yeah. I can't lie. I'm coming off a birdie on 10 and I am feeling great. And I say, I'm going to record the 11th hole. It's a famous hole. Let's get up there. And do you know, I get on the tee box and I cold hard shank it. And I make a 7 or 8 with a caddy carrying my bag as I'm videoing every shot. And the caddy says to me afterwards, he's like, "Mike, are you really going to put that out?" And you know what? Of course I put it out and I get grilled. And I think the hardest part is people don't realize how hard it is to golf with a camera on you. But I also think the fear from the recording side is it's finding ways to relate to the guest. Like a perfect example was that when we had Jim Nantz on, it's like, listen, Jim Nantz could talk to anybody about CBS and golf and all that football all day long, but I'm not really sure that that's something he wants to do. So the objective when we had him on is let's get him to reminisce a little bit. He's a Jersey-born kid, played golf right here at home, worked at Battleground Country Club. Like he knows the ins and outs about New Jersey. Let's get him to reminisce. Before you know it, 30 minutes are in, he tells his assistant that he's with, he's like, "I need 5 more minutes with these guys. I got to tell him another Fred Couple story." And it was like that's how you know that you're getting it done, when you're finding ways to get them to just be a normal person and not this person that's like way above you that you're looking up to.
Yeah, but I mean, how was that interview? Like, I will be quite scared of just interviewing. Like, it doesn't get as bigger than Jim Nantz.
So listen, the funny thing is I was actually playing golf when I did the interview. I was playing in New Jersey State 4-ball at Hamilton Farm. So I literally was playing with the AirPod in my ear, and my is only audio because at the time we weren't video. And I had to get special approval from New Jersey Golf to allow me to do this. So I'm literally playing golf down the 10th hole and the 11th hole at Hamilton Farm with Jim Nantz in my ear. And I so happen to make a birdie on the 10th hole, make like a 50-footer. And Nantz is in my ear. I can't even yell or scream in the tournament because I can't like interrupt the interview. But I think one of the things, about big people like that, like Jim Nantz, when we sat down, even with Michelle Wee West in person, the thing I always tell is people is be prepared. Be prepared, because the more prepared you are, the less nervous you'll feel. If you go in there and you've done no work, you know nothing about the interviewee that you're talking to, and you don't know maybe things they don't like, things that they do like, you didn't do any research about, maybe you have a connection to them through somebody, then you're going to be super nervous. But if you go in there and you've kind of dotted your I's and crossed your T's, you can go in there, you're an adult, you know how to handle, conversations, and you just go in there and you do your best. But being prepared, for me, like every episode that we do, there's a full 4 to 5 page sheet on every episode that we do on Tuesdays. Every interview that comes on, I got at least a 1 to 2 page interview sheet of interesting facts about the person. I got my questions I want to ask them, and then some other things that if I had time, I'd hit them with. So like, yeah, there's a lot of behind the scenes work that people don't see or maybe even understand. But I've always felt that like the more prepared I am, the better the interview will go.
Yeah, because I mean, you just never know how things are gonna go with the interviewee. You know, it's all of a sudden you have somebody who doesn't want to talk as much that day, and it just it becomes boring, and it becomes like what am I doing now? You know?
Listen, I can't lie. We've had them. We've
Yeah,
had guests on that. It's like at times you get off the interview and you're like, man, I felt like I was pulling teeth there. And
yeah.
it happens. It happens. But like all you can do is like, listen, I got my list of questions. I can keep firing them. And if you had said something that maybe sparks another question, I just may continue to roll with it, especially when I'm getting an answer out of you.
Yeah. So going back, you said, at the beginning it was just the two of you guys talking. Who was your first guest?
Wow, great question. So our first guest was Corey Brigham. So Corey Brigham at the time, I want to say he had won the 2022 New Jersey State Public Links Tournament. And I had just randomly DM'd him and said, hey, Corey, I got a new podcast. Like this is, any interest in hopping on to talk about your win? He's like, yeah, let's do it. So he hopped on. Then before you know it, I think we got Dave Kronheim, who's now the president of New Jersey Golf. He hopped on. And then following that, I think we had Troy Vanucci of Little Mill, who now is the New Jersey State Golfer of the Year for the past few years. So early on, it was kind of crazy because those were the early guests, and that was our benchmark in terms of like letting other people know that, hey, listen, we're just two guys that want to talk, play, and experience all things golfing in the Garden State. Like that's the intent here. We're not looking for you to invite us to your place. We're not looking for a freebie. We just want to highlight all the good that we have going on here. And luckily, it was one of those kind of like, domino effects that once one chip fell, the next one did, the next one did. And now it's to the point where it's growing. The guests, I think, are even bigger. I think the stories are getting even better. And it's just continuing to find different people that we can continue to shine light on.
Yeah, I mean, because right now, honestly, you guys, I cannot think of another podcast that's more aligned with everything in New Jersey than you guys. Obviously, there's a bunch of them, but it's like, okay, you think of the drop and think of New Jersey.
I think I think if you had asked me like the intent of what my goal is with this whole thing at the end of the day, because people say to me like, Mike, what are you trying to do now? Now that it's just you, what is the goal? And it's hard to pinpoint one thing and just say it's that. But I think the idea for someone like me is I want to be the hub for all things golfing in the Garden State, whether it's college tournaments that are going on here, whether it's a professional tournament going on here, whether it's all the New Jersey State events that are going on here, the MGA events that dive into the state, like anything that has to do with New Jersey golf, whether it's a player doing something crazy, whether it's a pro going out and doing something special, whatever the case is, like I want to be that centralized spot that people know that I guarantee Mike probably covered that already, or he's going to cover it because it happened right here. Because to your point, there are other podcasts that do things, but I think the difference for them compared to me is I'm homegrown doing it here. They're national stepping outside doing things all across the United States. So listen, that's the goal. See if it can happen.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's or when you think about operations, it's just a lot easier too, and there's so much to do here in New Jersey. New Jersey is such a golf-rich state. I mean, honestly, obviously Florida, California, other places, but in New York, but it's just in New Jersey we have every single thing here that can be golf. So it's there's definitely a lot of material here to cover for sure.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think the idea that you can get from the top of the state to the bottom of the state in maybe 3.5 hours, it's like, I can do that. Like in theory, I could be that maniac that went from the South to the North. I couldn't do that in other states. You're not getting there in Florida or California or Texas in one day. You're frankly not.
Yeah.
And I think that is one of the special things that we have here is you have that ability to get to someplace, any place in one day.
Yeah, I mean, because listen, and the other cool thing about New Jersey is that you have you could go west and you have courses in the mountain. You could go down south. You have courses by the beach. You could go in the middle of the woods. There's so many options out there. So, what was the moment that you guys realized that okay, we have something good here? Like this is it. I know you said that somebody, you started getting calls about wanting to be part of it, but was that the moment, or was there another moment where you go like, okay, we got to keep this going because this is legit. We're onto something.
Yeah, I don't know if there was that moment. At the time, Ryan and I had two different jobs with the podcast. His was always editing the podcast, making sure that every Tuesday and Thursday the episode came out. So it was more of the behind the scenes, the editing there. And mine was like kind of like the guy out in front. I'm getting all the guests, I'm handling all the business side of it, I'm handling all the socials, the networking, all that type of stuff that's constantly go and go. But again, I'm a big analytic guy. So I would swear by the numbers. So like when we put an episode out, I know, okay, let me see where the numbers are. Let me see how many downloads, streams, plays that we're getting here. All right. And then I dive deeper into that episode and say, okay, the audience doesn't like when we listen to or talk about this. So I wouldn't put it in the next one. I'd go to the next week's episode and I'd listen and I watch and let me see where the numbers are going. And then once you just saw that steady tick up of people listening more, the retention rate being higher. You're finding the things that the audience wants to hear. That's where I was like, all right, we're winning here. Like we're winning because not only are people just listening, they're listening to the whole thing. They're not just finding that one clip that they liked from socials. They're now going to listen to the whole thing from beginning to end. And I always found like if the retention rate was high, we're doing something right. And I just felt like once we started to weed out different things in the episodes that not many people wanted to hear, it just continued to get better and better and better. And listen, yes, to everybody's point, like, are there duds? 100%. Are there segments that are terrible? 100%. I'm not saying anything's perfect, but what I tried to do is find what the audience likes us to talk about and continue to find ways to talk about different things along those lines.
So how was that growth on like a Spotify? Like, like I've seen many podcasts, even myself, where it's like, okay, it's hard to get people to go ahead and actually listen to it. It's kind of like YouTube as well. Obviously people consume on Instagram and other platforms very quickly. But when it comes to like, somebody actually putting stuff in the car and listening to it, that's hard. So like, what was that trajectory? Like it was like the first few months, like there was no one, and then all of a sudden, boom.
Oh man, you're dating me here. I don't really know, to be honest with you. I don't. I think maybe a bonus for guys like Ryan and I at the time is that it wasn't a video thing at the time. So if you really wanted to listen, you had to consume the audio vehicle through Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, because we really didn't have the video because we weren't that good at what we were doing to have it, frankly. And I think that was probably an early assistant to get that Spotify and Apple Podcast numbers up. And I think as we branched out and got better with what we did, I think the video ended up being like complementary because the bulk of where our listeners are Spotify and Apple Podcasts. YouTube is now legitimately for us, probably since I brought Shaq on, has really been a trajectory straight up because it was kind of flatline. Nothing was happening. Few subs here or there, but no growth, no monetization. And we brought Shaq on last February. And since then, now the channel's monetized. Now things are so much better. And I think a huge part of that is Shaq and having a better understanding of the YouTube channel than I do.
Yeah, I mean it's a full-time job. It's definitely it's not something that you just go ahead and put in there and just let it go. Like I mean, anybody could put it out there, but to actually grow it, it's a full-time job and it requires a lot of it requires expertise
Yeah,
and a
there's
lot
no
of trial and error.
understatement. Yeah, and I think that one thing is you just can't be afraid to fail. Like you're gonna have duds and things are gonna be bad and people are gonna give you the jab like you're an idiot. What are you doing? That's a dumb thing to do. Spend your time elsewhere. But now, if I fast forward 3.5 years later to where it is now, people are like, "Dude, what a great idea! You're killing it. I see your stickers all over the place." And it's like one of those things. Like I always had that vision that this thing could be something special, and I still have said it repeatedly that I think it's in its infancy stages still, and I think it's one of those things that like I say it all the time, like to the moon we go, baby, and I still truly believe that.
Yeah, no, it's a commitment. It just requires a big commitment to really believe that okay, what I'm doing it's going to work. I say at least for me, it's like I've started a few businesses nothing hugely successful, but I've done okay. And I realize how like I'm all excited. I'm telling people, hey, this is what I'm gonna do, and this, and everyone's like, you really, you got kids, you got to do this. Then all of a sudden, you start changing people's mind. All of a sudden, people see like, okay, this guy is actually serious about it, and that's a really cool thing that I've learned to enjoy.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
Yeah. So when it comes to guests and getting known, what was the main driver? Was it social media, or you were actually out there making connections with people?
Yeah. So listen, again, and one of the running jokes for me is I live on my phone. So you can't imagine how much, if you actually looked at the screen time on my phone, kind of how embarrassing it is and how much time is spent.
Yeah.
I will say this, and people have said I'm a lunatic for doing it, but if you DM me on Instagram, there's never a time I'll go to bed without responding to every single one in there, because to me, communication matters. I'm not someone who doesn't like to communicate. I frankly probably over communicate more than anything, because I look at it as being a little player in this game. If I'm not being able to communicate when you are ready to communicate, I lose it. I miss out. A perfect example is, I think at one time it was like 10 or 10:30 at night, and I'm firing through on my DMs saying, responding to them all. And I put the phone down and my phone blinks again. It's Morgan Hoffman. Okay. Now, Morgan Hoffman, New Jersey's own, went through a crazy story about how he had some major issues, DMs me finally back after me just throwing things out there to all these guys. Hey, listen, we'd love to have you on. Here's what we're about. He DMs me. So I had to tell my wife real quick, like, hold on a second. I have to respond to this because someone's on the other side of this. If you're DMing me, that's how I know you're at your phone. So I have to stop before I go to bed, start having a conversation with Morgan through DMs, because I needed to nail him down to get him on the podcast. Lo and behold, I eventually get him on. So to me, it's like, I'll throw the carrot out there to anybody through DMs. And when it hits, I am going to instantly respond, because to me, that communication matters. It's the same thing on comments. If you check all our comments on Instagram, there's never a time I have not responded to every comment, whether I've commented with my hashtag golfing in the Garden State, or if I frankly liked everyone. But there's never a time that I won't respond. And people are like, dude, you're out of your mind. I know, I am. I have self-admit, but I also know that helps us in terms of growing, getting out there.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's if somebody took the time to comment, even if it was bad, because there's definitely a few haters out there. It helps. So it's you got it. I like to say it's customer service.
It is.
It is. Because, they're consuming your product, so it's customer service. Was there like a time in the last 3 years where you guys were like, okay, you know what, we got to shut this down. This is really difficult. This is not going forward. Can you talk about one of those moments, if there was any?
No, there was. It definitely was. It was probably before we had Shaq come on, and I'm on vacation in St. Thomas.
And sorry to interrupt you. Who's Shaq exactly? We could just introduce Shaq a little bit.
Yeah. So Shaq is now my social media manager. He kind of handles all the editing of everything that goes on. So him and I must text back and forth about 400 times a day, making sure that everything that we want gets out. So he's like my right-hand man now behind the scenes. He's been a few videos of mine that have come out, but more or less at the time, he was the social media manager handling all just the posting on the platforms, because Ryan was still around handling the editing of the podcast. And as it started to grow, the social media side for me became overwhelming. And I was like, I'm done. I'll never forget, I was in St. Thomas on vacation, and the amount of DMs that are pouring in, I'm like, I'm trying to actually like enjoy myself here. I frankly can't, because I'm getting, in a good way. Don't get me wrong. This is not even like in a bad way. People are asking us to do this or come out to there. Can you respond to this? And it's like, I couldn't even shut it down. And I got back from vacation. I said, I'm done. Unless we hire a social media manager, like, I'm done, because I can't keep up. I frankly can't keep up, and it's becoming exhausting. And that's where the idea was like, all right, let's find someone to help you out with how much this thing is growing. And we had gone through a couple people before we landed on Shaq that just didn't have the same philosophy, the same motivation as someone like me, because that's who I was. I was the one going to be dealing with that person. And I'm very particular about the details. The little things matter to me. And then, we had gone through a couple good people. It just didn't work out. And then when I got introduced to Shaq and him and I kind of went back and forth about a lot of things, I knew it was like, all right, he's the right guy. Obviously with Ryan departing now, more's been on Shaq's plate. And I think if you look at what's been going on since January 1st, it's kind of crazy.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I've seen you guys had some big guests. If you can talk a little bit about that and maybe about what's to come, if you feel comfortable saying it. Yeah.
Yeah, listen, I think, I don't want to say like it was intentional, like it wasn't. I mean, at the time in December, Ryan and I kind of knew that we were, things were fraying a little bit and things may have been going their own ways. And it was a matter of like kind of working through some logistics in terms of, what to do with the LLC, how to move on from it. But again, all legal stuff that's really not interesting. It was like, all right, I'm not stopping. Right. So I'm not stopping. I knew that I still needed to pump out guests. Like January is going to be here before you know it. And I understand that Ryan's going his separate ways, but like I'm not. So this Drop podcast is continuing. So again, I used a few connections that I had through different people to get me lined up with certain people that I thought like, man, this could be a banger to start January. Be like, wow, okay. With, Mike's coming out and starting with Rockets right off the bat. And I knew, I knew right from the get-go, even a guy like Diamo Streezer, who's the head golf pro up there at Watchung Valley, an up-and-coming, a riser in the game, like I knew starting him off was like a perfect start to what January could be because I knew what was coming out. And I knew I was following that up with the first full week in January of Riggs being out there. And I was like, man, this is going to be perfect. It followed up by Jake Stoutland last week. It was like, all right, I knew right off the bat in January, I'm like, these are 3 high profile names, recognizable names. And I think that's just it kind of like a little hint as to what's to come as we proceed here into February.
I mean, that's really awesome because I think it's really a testament of the hard work, because it's hard to get somebody like Riggs or just for them to not to pay attention because they're so busy. I mean, God knows how many people are just after them. For them to take the moment and say, hey, look here, I'm going to take my time and do this podcast.
Yeah. And listen, I people hate on Riggs. People hate on Riggs. You see it all the time on Instagram, on TikTok, Twitter, the whole 9. But that dude was beyond courteous with me. And when I sat down in the interview, he said, listen, Mike, however long you need, 30 minutes, an hour, 15, whatever you want. I'm here I'm going to answer all your questions and we're going to shoot the shit. And I was like, I love this. I'm like, okay. Afterwards, he gave me his cell phone number. When the podcast came out, we were texting back and forth. Anything you can do to share it on socials. He blasted out one of the clips on top of it. Those are things to me that like make me kind of validate like, okay, I am doing it the right way. I'm not looking for all these extra things that people may think that you're asking. All I'm trying to do is just be a good person, highlighting the things that you got going on, and let's just talk in the same sport that we all love, and that's golf.
Yeah, because I mean, listen, you don't get to this point by not doing the right thing. There's so many people looking for attention, and this is without the business. Obviously, I'm not at your point when it comes to the podcast in my project, but with any business, you realize
not there yet.
Not there yet. Absolutely. But everyone, it's very easy to pick up someone who's who's doing it just for their benefit as opposed to a bigger purpose. And that's why a lot of these guys that have made it big, you realize that, oh my God, they're so nice in person. And it's because, you know what, they're doing that all over and building relationships. And that's what has gotten it to that point.
Listen, we were all there. We were all there at one point. Don't forget where you came from. It's really, that's kind of what the whole thought process here is like, listen, at one point I was brand new at doing this game and I had no clue what I was doing. And I was just going to fake it until I make it. And you just keep pounding, keep stacking the bricks up one by one. And one thing will lead to another. No doubt about it.
So would that be your advice to an aspiring, like somebody who's like, okay, I want to do something like the drop? What would be your advice? Would that be it or something else?
I would say you got to be consistent. I think ultimately that's what matters, because if you want a loyal person to listen, they need to know that the consistency matters. So they need to know every Tuesday you got something coming out. Like every Thursday, your episode's coming out. And I think that's ultimately the true indicator as to why the Drop Podcast has been so successful, is consistency. Like, yes, do we have things go on social media every single day? Yeah, we'll always have 1 to 2 different pieces of content go out on social media all the time. But for us, the driving factor has always been the podcast. That's been the driving factor. And I always felt like the socials complemented the podcast, because the podcast is where this whole thing originated. This is the idea. So like we knew that, like, all right, if we can get this out there every Tuesday, no matter what, people will listen. Hopefully they'll listen, share it with a friend who shares it with another friend. And then as it got bigger and I saw that the retention rate started to either go straight to the interview or things, I said, okay, let's split the episode. Let's have one on Tuesday and now one on Thursday. And all of a sudden now the curiosity is, who do they got this Thursday? Who do they got this Thursday? Oh, what are they going to, I know they played a golf course over the weekend. I saw it on Instagram. I can't wait to hear about it on Tuesday's episode. And that just kind of the consistency of being able to know that something is coming out for your listeners to listen to. I think that's the game changer.
How was that transition to playing golf courses, and especially like private golf courses? Because you guys have been to some amazing places, and it's always it's a little scary for some people to be like, oh, I'm going to be taking videos in a fancy private country club. Yeah, like how was that how was that conversation? How did it go to being able to, like, hey, we're going to go ahead and give you access to our place? Yeah.
Well, I think your reputation matters. I think what you're going to show them. I think if you had an example of what you're trying to do matters, but I think also you need to be overly communicative with them. Like, hey, listen, here's my intent on doing it. And you can't just say it to the person inviting you. It can't just be that member that invited you out there. Like, my big thing is, if I can find a way to connect with the head golf professional, maybe even the general manager, because there's also a board that's sometimes above them. And if this whole thing isn't understood from the bottom to the top, bad things can happen. Okay. And you have to also respect the idea that, listen, some of them may say no. Some of them may say, just take pictures. So you respect it, but you've got to be respectful. You have to communicate, because if you're not making sure that you're explaining everything you're doing, and then you shine kind of like a negative light, or the video isn't as good, or it's not what they expected, I don't know if you're going to get that invite back. So I think you walk a fine line, because you got to be transparent. Like, I always like to try to be as transparent and honest as I can, but you also can't be negative either. And you kind of have to walk a fine line. But if you're going to record something out there on a private golf course, man, oh man, you better communicate with a lot of people so everybody knows what you're doing.
Yeah, it's I mean, listen, it's kind of like just going into somebody's home, and what I have told some people is like, look, there's the clubs are a special place. Even if they're not super famous, they're still special, because the hard work that has gone into building a place, especially if it has been there for 100 years, it's a lot, and it's a lot of pride. There's a lot of pride, especially with the long-time members. So it's very important to be careful and be mindful of, like, hey, we want to be able to do our way, but at the same time make sure that we show the good things about the place that we're being invited to. So what excites you the most about the future of the Drop Podcast?
Man, I think it's endless. And I think there's so many things that I'm eager to touch on. There's so many different stories I feel like that are going to be able to be told. And not to say that having a partner is bad whatsoever, but sometimes when you're already playing, as I've said earlier, Tetris with the entire schedule of piecing a puzzle together, knowing that, like, you're not kind of handcuffed in that aspect that, hey, listen, If I have a date, you have a date, and Shaq's on board, we can go ahead and make it happen. It's not another person checking a schedule. And now the idea that you're able just to go do kind of many different things in a variety of areas, man, oh man, I can't lie. Like April 1st and posting season can't come quick enough. I'll be brutally honest, I'm not the biggest winter golfer, but on a nice 50-degree day, you'll probably see me out there if I can make it work. But I just think the idea that like the story continues, right? The idea that the Drop podcast, maybe it's not like, brand new. It's like the next chapter. It's like, okay, we had a great 3-year run, Ryan and I, and now it's like, what's next? And I think the start of what January has looked like only really excites not only myself, but the fans and the listeners as well. It's like, wow, this maybe could be bigger than even what I thought it could be, because if these are the type of guests that are willing and able to come onto this show, who knows what's in store once golf season actually begins, and where is he going to go? Who's he going to get on? Who's he going to start recording videos with while out there? I think it just adds that interesting like intrigue and curiosity and kind of a little mystique about like, man, I can't wait to see what comes out next.
I mean, that's the exciting part that just keeps, at least for me, it's like, oh my God, I can do this. I can do this. Yeah. Very much looking forward to that. And finally, I'll end this with this question. How would you define success for your show? I mean, let's say 5 years from now, which is a long time. It's a very long time, but how would you define success?
I'm still having fun with it. Honestly, God, I think it's really that simple for me. I think if I'm still enjoying it as much as I am right now, it's a success, right? The idea that like I can control how many people are going to listen, I can't. I can't control how many people are not going to like my golf swing or my putting stroke online. I can't control when people love the high draw that I hit all the time. Like those things are out of my control. But I know that like, yeah. Until it hooks into the woods. But it's one of those things, if I know that I'm having a lot of fun with it, Shaq's by my side, able to assist and help out, like I'm just going to keep it going. There's no reason not to. I think it's to your earlier point, it's endless with how much golf is actually here. And if it ever got to the point where you maybe tapped everything, I think if I walked across the street to Philadelphia, there's a lot of good golf over there. If I walked across the street to New York City and Long Island, there's a lot of good golf up there. So I still think there's untapped areas that the Drop podcast could venture into if the dominating at home ever was fully complete.
Well, let's leave it at that, because that's a pretty good answer. I'm very excited to see what you guys, the whole team, does in the future. Definitely looking forward to listening to more of your episodes, which I do all the time. I drive, my office is in North Jersey. I'm in Bridgewater. I take an hour all the way to East Rutherford and I listen to it. That's especially when I'm stuck in traffic. So,
Listen, I appreciate it. I appreciate it, buddy. And I think you'll get there. I think the thing is just got to, and I'll say it over and over again, put your head down, keep working hard. You never know what's going to happen.
Thank you so much, man. Thank you so much.